Hi, and welcome to our webinar on Jim2 groups. A common thing I hear when I talk to customers is that they don't know what they don't know. And as such, we'll be going right back to basics for each topic to make sure that you're all fully informed of each section. At the end of each session, we'll have a Q&A in which you can type any question you like into chat, and we'll either answer live or get back to you with an answer after our webinar. I also wanted to let you know that these webinars and other short informational videos are available in our Learning Resources Centre. You can find this on our website by going to jim2.com.au, highlighting Resources, and then clicking Learning Resources. Finally, before we get started, I wanted to thank everyone that filled out the survey ahead of this webinar. It was a great source of information about what our customer base wanted to know more about around groups. So let's start on today's topic, Jim2 groups. Categorization of things seems to be something that humans excel at, from building maps of how different species evolved to deciding what genres of music we like, to making sure our kitchen pantries are in order so that we can find things. Humans have spent much of our time on Earth building categories and then including things in those categories. Through doing this, we can make sense of the world. We discover commonalities and group things together so that we can keep things organized. We use those groups in communication so others also know what we're talking about, which then helps us move towards common goals using common language. Jim2 does contain a system for categorization, which can help you create common language, create systems which can make finding things easier, and help you report on the different levels of categorization you need. And that system is called groups. There are 7 different objects that you can include in groups in Jim2, and these are card files, items, stock, projects, assets, documents, and users. And then we have the different group types as follows: report level, non-report level, region, brand, folder, price group, tags, and category. Not all group types will be available on all objects, as there are differences between what you can do with the groups on these objects. For example, you can set a price group against stock, but you cannot set a price group against documents. In that case, simply because documents don't have prices. You will notice that the slide shows some groups with the same color. This is because these types of groups are related in terms of their functionality. They are still applied to different objects for different purposes, but be aware that there is similarity in their functions. I'll point out early that there's not really any interaction between groups and the general ledger. Also, although there are security groups, these won't be discussed today as we did cover them in the recent security webinar. I just wanted to mention that up front in case there was any expectation there. So, to make sure that we cover everything today, we'll discuss each object type and which group types are available to them, as well as some practical applications for those group types. To start, we'll first talk about how to manage the different groups. If we go to Tools, Groups, and just card files to start with, I'll show you how to add groups and subfolders where applicable. If you right-click on a folder, you have the option to add a group. This will create a folder at the same level of the folder that you have clicked. On some group types, you can click to add a child group, and it will add a subfolder under that first folder. When you add a group, you'll be able to enter a name for it. If you click away and there is no name, the group will be removed. If you name it and then need to rename it, you can either click the folder 2 times, so not a double click, but 2 deliberate clicks, or you can use the Windows shortcut for renaming a folder, which is F2. You can add objects to the groups in this window too. If you haven't set up groups yet, your objects will be in a folder labeled root. You will see the available objects on the right-hand side, which you can click and drag into the groups on the left-hand side. There are Windows shortcuts that you can take advantage of here as well. If you click an entry, hold Shift, and then click another, you can select a range. Or if you hold Control, you can select individual objects. When you highlight in either of these ways and then move the entries, all the highlighted entries will be moved into that group. There are a couple more functionalities related to groups that we can see from a list. You can, of course, include a group to show all associated info with, excuse me. You can, of course, include a group to show all info associated with that group. But if you wanted to include all except a group, you can double click on the word groups. It will turn the field green to indicate that the list should ignore any entries that you have selected. In addition to excluding groups from results, you can also use and or statements with them. Just after the ellipses, you'll find a big or, and if we click it, it will change to and. Think about it as if you were adding the word and or in between each group. This means that if you have multiple groups selected, in the field, you can choose to only see that results are in each group by leaving it on or we can see the results that are in every group by changing it to and. Starting from card files, we have three types of group available: report level, non-report level, and region. Report level groups are only able to be applied to an object once, and as such, this should be used to represent the main way you want to categorize that object. A common use of report level groups while on a card file is to segment your customer base. Customer segmentation is just about putting customers into different categories for the purpose of marketing, selling, or even gaining insights about your customer base. When we start to think about our client base in this way, we can start to think of different ways to separate our customers. You may even want to advertise some deals to one part of your client base and different deals to another. At Happen, because we serve so many different types of business, we find it helpful to categorize our customer base on the market they operate in. This can help us focus messaging on different markets because our different customers will have different needs from Jim2. Once you've decided how your customers will be divided into segments, the next step is to turn those segments into report level groups. Now, report level groups can have subfolders to help you narrow down categorization as well. They allow up to 4 sublevels of categorization, which should give you plenty of granularity. Here we can see that I've set up verticals that I serve with my demo business. If we have a look in IT services, we can see that there are additional categories inside of IT services as subcategories to best represent each customer's market. Once you've set up your customers' report level groups, you'll be able to use them in lists to assist in marketing efforts with even more targeted marketing. Research shows that targeted advertising is far more effective than advertising to a wider general audience, so you may find that you have an increase in response just by tailoring your message to different markets. To do this, we'll create a card file list. We'll set the groups that we'd like to include in this list, and then hit run. From there, we can use the report drop down and select email from card list, click preview. We'll need to select a template that we've previously created and choose an email address that we want to send the messaging from. And then we need to choose which contacts to deliver it to. I think this message is important enough that all contacts should see it. When we're ready, we can click send and our targeted advertising emails will be on their way. Non-report level groups on card files will give you additional categories that you can use on the customer's card file. In fact, because there's no restriction on non-report groups, you can apply as many as you like on an individual basis to create categories that make sense for you and your business. As an example, let's say you have a customer that looks after managed IT services, but they also handle managed print services as well as telephony and ISP services. As IT services is the main part of their business, you would apply IT services as the report group. Then you could use non-report level groups to show the other services that they offer, like MPS, telephony, and ISP. By including additional non-report level groups to help augment the initial reporting group, you're expanding the categories that you can use to describe the object. This will in turn allow you to better target your customer base by developing additional segmentation. Region is probably one of the easier to explain, as it's simply a grouping you can make of the card codes that appear in a certain region. You might want to see this as you have technical staff that service particular areas, or you may have sales regions designated for different sales staff. Or again, you may wish to engage in some more targeted marketing. The region should not necessarily translate as individual suburbs unless there is a need for that level of granularity, but should instead be groups of suburbs to help better reflect service areas or even customer demographics. One way to make the most of region on card files is to create a job list and then filter by that region. We go to advanced, we can then select a region. This way, we can only see the jobs that are in this region, which creates for a great run sheet for any on-site visits that you may need to make. This could be good for service visits or sales trips. If you have a regular need for these types of lists, consider publishing them and then sharing the list with the staff that perform work on those runs. This will allow each staff member to work from the same information set, which should help significantly reduce miscommunications. Items. An item is used as a means of automating various elements when adding a job, quote, or project by pre-populating the item with details for the job. Items have two groups available to them, report level and non-report level groups. Starting with report level groups, and as items can dictate the type of job that's created, I like to start my grouping with the three types of jobs that Jim2 can create, those being service, sales, and manufacturing. By starting at these types of jobs, we can better understand the purpose of the job. If we expand these sections, we can see some subheadings that can help you show what I mean. In the manufacturing section, we only have PCs. Actually, there are PCs in each of the sections, but the purpose of each group is slightly different. In the manufacturing group, the purpose is to build PCs. The sales group is for selling PCs, and the service section is to carry out maintenance on the PCs. Going to another level in the PC service area, we can see different parts of the PC. The items in these folders are set up to be used as replacement parts. These can include the part themselves, the hours labour that the replacement will likely take, as well as a checklist for apply stock to ensure that the job is performed correctly. What this means for you, however, is that if you have your item groups set up in a similar way, you can then very easily see how many jobs have been completed with the different types of items. Non-report level groups on items will behave in much the same way as on a card code. You can apply as many as you like to help you give more categorization to your items. Stock has the most group types available to it, with report level, non-report level, brand, and price group able to be applied. Report and non-report level groups will work in the same way as previously described. Report level can only be applied once, but can have subfolders, whereas non-report level can have many applied to the stock, but no subfolders. Common ways to set out the report groups for stock would be to have descending folders that become more accurate to the type of stock that you're selling. As an example, you may have a folder named Tools, and under that folder you could have power tools and hand tools. Under hand tools, you could have woodworking or metalworking, and then under woodworking, you could have different woodworking tools. Non-report level groups are used by our integrated website called Jim2 Commerce, which is why some of the tags here are named the way that they are. You could also use non-report level groups to keep groups of stock more easily. You could also use non-report level groups on stock to more easily find products that you like to recommend. Group stock together by color or any number of categories. The brand group can be used to bring items from the same brands together. By doing this, you're creating a system in which you can more easily find stock. The group would not be used for the supplier, as a single supplier could provide a number of different brands, and we have other ways of seeing stock by vendor anyway. The main reason to have brands entered against your stock is simplicity. Brands are often recognized by customers and staff alike, which creates a common reference point. If you're having trouble understanding what a client may be after, this may be a way to help. Price groups can be used to offer your customers deals on specific stock. This one can be a bit tricky to set up actually and has mostly been superseded by promotional pricing sessions. The price group system would allow you to set stock to sell at a different price level for specific clients, but it can be a bit rigid in its setup. If you do want to know more about this group, please reach out to our support team. Reporting on stock groups is quite straightforward. We simply make use of lists and then access the reports drop-down from the top right. Be aware that the groups are only available when you access advanced list options. But once you do, you can then report on any of the groups by running a list and then using the drop-down menu to find more about stock activity, stock aging, monthly sales, how much you have on hand, and of course pricing information amongst many others. Next, we have project groups. Projects have three groups available, which is report level, non-report level, and brand. Categorizing projects may be useful for your business if you have a variety of work that a customer may purchase. Alternatively, you could categorize projects in Jim2 that are for your internal use. You may be wondering why brand might be important when organizing a project. It's been included as some of you, particularly those in managed print services, would know projects as contracts. As contracts were directly related to the printers and copiers that they were managing, being able to see only a subset of contracts based on the brand of printer or copier becomes very important. Outside of these points, there isn't really a lot of difference between how groups are used on projects. Non-report, as many as you like, no sublevels. Report, only one, but sublevels are available. Onto assets, and again we have report level, non-report level, and brand. For anyone unsure, assets are largely to do with managed services and managed print services, as they represent equipment that the business performs maintenance on. This could include everything from pumps to printers or even farm equipment. Brand groups should be fairly self explanatory. Add the brand that the machine is, and you can find all of them later. Non report level groups are the same as before, too. Apply as many as you like based on your categorization needs. But what about report level groups on assets? Well, report level groups can be used to link similar assets together. For example, if a printer company releases four variants of a similar model, the service parts may be the same, but the machine has been configured to operate in slightly different ways. This may create a report group structure that could look similar to this. By doing this, you're giving yourself a way to report on your color business and your black and white business. You can separate down to how many prints per minute the asset does, and then add if it's a copier or printer. From that point, you can add individual groups of models that have the same replacement parts. Next up, we have documents, which contains three types of groups: folder, tags, and category. As mentioned previously, folders is akin to report level groups, so can only be applied once to a document and behave like Windows Explorer for file management. Folder will build the folder structure that can be found to the left of the document screen. In terms of advice on a practical structure, it will depend on what sorts of documents you would like to store and what you will use the documents for. At Happen, we keep policy and procedure data in a set of folders with each department as headings to make it easy for those staff to find those documents. We keep marketing style informational documents in a structure that's titled as areas of Jim2, as they relate to those areas. Documentation from customers also lives in the document section and is kept in its own area with subheadings for signed quotes and service agreements as examples. A good folder structure can mean the difference between finding the document you're looking for now and finding it after an opportunity has passed. Documents also make use of the tags and category groups. Tags are a lot like non-report level groups in that you can apply as many as you like to an object, but again, no subfolders. In terms of practical examples, tags are a great way to keep a set of documents that you commonly use. I could tag a document into the Ashley group to make it easier to find later on. Category is similar to brand or region in that you can only apply one to a document. Commonly used categories for documents could be procedure, contract, MSDS, or even product manual. Finally, we have the group types available to users, which is tags and category. To be clear, user groups are separate to security. You can use groups to help view security on each of those users, but you'll not be able to assign security settings based on user groups. If we go to the security section and then go to the by group area, we can see the groups that are available. If we place a tick in them, each member of the groups will appear for comparison on the right-hand side. Another use of groups is to limit staff on an item. You may ask, why limit the item to only select staff? Well, in doing this, you can ensure that only staff that are capable of the work is able to have the job assigned to them. In other words, if they're not ticked on the item, the job the item is used on will not be able to be assigned to those staff. Another way to make use of user groups is to see all jobs that are assigned to people. Once a user group is created, you will need to log out and back in again, but after you do, you will see the user groups become selectable in the user dropdown. By selecting one of these and running it, you will see all jobs assigned to all people in that group. By using groups, we can understand our client base better. We can find our stock and help automate the items process. We can see jobs or quotes that are assigned to users within a group. We can create common language within our business that will enable smoother workflows and ensure less miscommunications. Well, we sure covered a lot today about groups. We covered the different types of groups available in Jim2, how to segment your customer base, how to run reports on specific stock groups, and using groups to organise your documents. Finally, I'd like to thank you all for attending today. I'll leave some information on the screen about how you can get in touch with us. And now I'll hand over to Ian, who can answer any questions you might have about groups. Thank you.
Thanks, Ash. It was terrific. I know there's a lot to groups and a lot of different ways people might use them, but ultimately having a bit of a play allows you to work out the best way to see reporting, to see stats, work out patterns.
Absolutely. Do we have any questions that have come through as yet?
Not seeing any?
That is A-OK. Ian, what are the more, I know that we went through a few examples, but what jumps out to you when you think of groups in Jim2?
Well, I think clearly, as far as stock's concerned, being able to find a product for a job or a quote by using the stock select screen, which in turn can use groups in order to drill down. And a common one there would be you're quoting a product that the customer wants by the brand. So they specifically are saying, I want to see a particular range of products. Could you please quote me a television from that brand or a computer from that brand? And so by being able to select the group level settings that you have here, you can see on that stock select screen just above where your cursor is, you have 0 showing at the moment. You can actually say, well, show me down to level 3, for example, in my report level groups. Start with the brand. And then once we've started with the brand, it'll then allow you to select the things inside that brand for those categories. So if I was looking at a brand of Reebok, then I'd be able to open it up and then see the subcategories of shoes that are in the Reebok or clothing that would be in the Reebok branding. Now that's handy to use. The other place that I really like groups is the tagging of documents. In our business, we store a huge amount of documents, including training documents. And it's great to be able to go in and simply tag a document that I want to use on a regular basis and be able to pick it up or look at a range of these documents and choose to apply them rather than having to look through and find documents that could be difficult by their name, for example. So using the tag system in documents, very, very handy.
Very, very
We do
cool.
have a chat up there. Let's see what our question might be. Putting a document in the tag section. Well, tagging itself doesn't increase any of the storage problems as far as Jim's concerned. So a document obviously does take up space, although it would be minimal unless we're talking about many, many of them in very high resolution images, for example. But tagging it makes no difference to the storage size or space.
I think in practical terms, it would just be a field in the database that would be updated to say, you know, whenever looking for X, present Y. Sales territory as well as sales region. Yeah, absolutely. So that would be a perfect example of something that you could use region for. By including the card codes in a particular region, you're in fact setting up a sales territory.
But I think in the case where you do want to have two things that might not conflict, but go side by side, and we're only providing one in a region, then that's the benefit of coming back to a non-report level group. So you might have the service region as being a region as such, and the sales territory being a non-report level group. that may assist you in what you're trying to do. And I think, Ash, you presented some organisation there before where you were talking about have report levels and then further information in the non-report to try and assist that filter.
Absolutely.
Our document group currently has no organisation, only the root folder exists. I think that's probably quite common. One of the things about document management is it is a little bit like Windows Explorer. So you're thinking about how would you organise your own computer as far as your own files are concerned. It's really important when you're using the folder structure in documents to have a company agreement on how they should be applied. You're basically talking about a filing cabinet to find documentation. So all I can advise you is that, yes, using report level groups or folders in documents is important, but as a company, you need to decide what those levels are, what their names are, to make it nice and clear where a document would actually appear. I know within our own company, we have a similar level of disorganisation, but we try hard to think through where would someone be looking for this particular document if they were, for example, opening a filing cabinet and going to look for it.
And that's the
I'd chip away at it.
Well, I think the advice there is to first consider your structure and then start chipping away.
Okay, any more questions that you might have?
Of course, if questions come up after the webinar, you can always contact our support team who will be more than happy to answer any and all of your questions. I think that is probably about it for the moment. I'll thank everyone for joining us today, and thank you, Ian, for answering some questions. Oh, here we go. Can child groups be dragged out of a folder if someone has put it in the wrong section? Try dragging one out and it wouldn't move.
No, you in the circumstances, depending on the circumstances, because there is a little bit of difference in this, you might be better off simply recreating in the right place the report, the child group, excuse me, and then using the selection techniques that I showed you a little earlier, being able to select multiple files and drag them from one folder to the other. I think that's the most common way of moving them from one child group to another child group. Of course, just not the same point, but just similarly, if in the case of deleting a group, if you delete a group, you're not deleting the things in it. So don't be afraid to reorganize if that's something that's important. So you can actually go click onto a group and right click and delete the grouping, and the actual documents that are in it will simply fold up into the next level. While grouping stock can lock stock codes, it can be compatible with other products. So a sort of related stock, I think, is that what we're talking about there? Related stock in different areas of our business, we deal with it a bit differently. In the web portal area in Jim2 Commerce, we handle it in one way, but another is to use what's on screen at the moment, which is to use non-report level groups to enable a commonality between related products.
I'm not sure that I'm just concerned about the word lock there. I'm not sure that groups would ever lock something down. It is more about a categorization than making something unable to be edited.
Well, just the point on that is, yes, you can always move something from one place to another. There is no drama with that in terms of these report levels that are here. That doesn't mean it won't have implications for something else. Okay, so when you move something around in here, we'll give you the manipulation tools to be able to do that. That doesn't necessarily help other people. So you always need to be thinking through how these things are applied. Dean's pointed out the information about syncing back to the website as well. The other thing I do want to reiterate is something that Ash went through, which is that none of this is general ledger related. And because it's not general ledger related, it means you can move things around. You know, when we talk about GL groups, which is general ledger groups, you can't move your stock in and out of those. They are stable and must stay. However, here you can do what you need. So redesigning your categories might apply to a business over time.
Well said. And thank you, Dean, for the info there. Absolutely, there is a bit of updating that needs to be done between Jim and the website, but very easy and very straightforward process. Can stock codes be grouped for a particular region?
The
That's
stock codes
interesting.
themselves don't have a region category, so no. Again, the way that you might want to deal with that, if we're trying to say that things only apply to the northern region of a business, of a state, for example, is to set a non-report level group and start associating the products that way.
As simply as that, create a group and yeah, move some things in.
Dean is pointing out if you didn't have any transactions, you can move them through GL groups. That's correct. Not exactly the message I was trying to get across there, Dean, but nonetheless, yep, you are right.
That might be more the advanced webinars if we get to those. Yeah. Fantastic. Well, I think we'll wrap up there. Thank you everyone again for joining. Can't wait till next one, guys. Let's yeah, we'll see you then. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ash. That was great.
Thanks.